Chapter 3 Human Reproduction. So now we'll start with the Human Reproduction chapter of Standard 12th. As you are aware, humans are sexually reproducing and viviparous, that is, giving birth to the young ones. And the reproductive events in human include formation of gametes, that is gametogenesis, that is sperms in males and ovum in females, and transfer of sperm into the female genital tract, that is called insemination, and fusion of male and female gametes, that is fertilization, leading to formation of zygote. This is followed by formation and development of blastocyst and its attachment to the uterine wall. This is called implantation, and embryonic development, that is gestation, and delivery of baby, that is called parturition. So the steps involved are gametogenesis, formation of gametes, insemination, transfer of gametes into female genital tracts, then fusion of gametes to form zygote, fertilization, then implantation of blastula, embryonic development, gestation, and finally parturition, that is the delivery of the baby. Okay, events in the male and female. For example, there are remarkable differences between reproductive events in the male and female. For example, the sperm formation continues even in old men, but formation of ovum ceases in women around the age of 50 years. This is called menopause. Let us examine the male and female reproductive system in humans. Male reproductive system. The male reproductive system is located in the pelvis region, and it includes a pair of testes along with accessory ducts, glands, and external genitalia. The testes are situated outside the abdominal cavity within a pouch called scrotum. Okay, so they are located in a sac outside abdominal cavity called a scrotum, and this helps in maintaining the lower temperature around 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than normal human body temperature. And it is necessary for spermatogenesis, that is formation of sperms, gametes, and that's why they are located outside the abdomen in the cool scrotum, that is a pouch outside the abdomen. And in adults, each testis is oval in shape with a length of about 4 to 5 cm and width of about 2 to 3 cm. And this is covered by a dense covering. Each testis has about 250 compartments called testicular lobules. So there is a dense covering outside testis. The outermost is actually called as a tunica vaginalis, then middle one tunica albuginea, and the innermost tunica vasculosa. So the middle layer, it divides this, or it makes these compartments, around 250 compartments into the testicular space, and these are called as the testicular lobules. So here in this diagram you can clearly see the male reproductive system located in the pelvic region, and here the testes are located outside the abdomen in the scrotum, which maintains 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than normal human body temperature. And the penis is external genitalia. Each lobule contains 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules in which sperms are produced. Okay, so these testicular lobules, they have 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules in which the sperms are produced. And each seminiferous tubule is lined on its inside by two types of cells. One is male germ cells, also called as the spermatogonia, and the other one is the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells are also called as the nurse cell or subtentacular cells. So these male germ cells or spermatogonia are actually involved in the spermatogenesis. Even Sertoli cells are involved, but they have different function. They are not directly involved. The male germ cells undergo meiotic division, finally leading to sperm formation, while Sertoli cells provide nutrition to these germ cells. The regions outside the seminiferous tubule is called as the interstitial space. The region outside the seminiferous tubule is called the interstitial space, containing small blood vessels, interstitial cells, also called as the Leydig cells, and there are certain immunocompetent cells, immunologically active cells, also called as macrophages or phagocytic WBCs and all. And these Leydig cells or the interstitial cells, they synthesize and secrete testicular hormone called androgens. The male sex accessory duct include retitestes, vasa efferentia, epididymis, and vas deferens. The seminiferous tubules of this testis open into vas efferentia through the rete testis. The vasa efferentia leave the testis and open into epididymis located along the posterior surface of each testis. The epididymis leads into vas deferens that extends to the abdomen and loops over the urinary bladder. It receives the duct from seminal vesicle and opens into urethra as the ejaculatory duct. So they join together, the urethra and the duct from seminal vesicle and the vas deferens. They join together and form the ejaculatory duct. This duct store and transport sperms from the testis to the outside through urethra. So their function is transportation and storage, storing sperm and transporting them to the outside through urethra. Urethra originates from the urinary bladder and extends through the penis to its external opening called urethral meatus. This urethral meatus is nothing but an external opening or a orifice through which the urine comes. So here you can clearly see the sectional view of a seminiferous tubule. I mean the sectional view of testis. Inside testis there are 250 compartments called testicular lobule, each having 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubule. Inside seminiferous tubules are these small cells, different types of cells. One type of is male germ cell, also called as spermatogonia, and the other is the Sertoli cells. Spermatogonia or the male germ cell undergo meiotic division to form this male germ cell or the sperms or spermatids, which undergo further division to form the spermatozoa and sperms, and their heads are, you can see here, embedded into the Sertoli cells because Sertoli cells provide them nutrition, and after that they are released into this ducts, accessory ducts. Penis is male external genitalia. It is made up of special tissue that helps in erection of the penis to facilitate insemination. Insemination, what is insemination? It is the transfer of gametes, that is sperms, from male genital tract to the female genital tract. Okay, it is made of special tissue that helps in erection of the penis to facilitate insemination, and the enlarged end of the penis is called glans penis. It is covered by a loose fold of skin called a foreskin, also called as a prepuce. The male accessory glands include paired seminal vesicles, a prostate gland which is unpaired, and a paired bulbourethral gland, also called as a Copper's gland. Secretion of this gland constitute the seminal plasma, which is rich in fructose and calcium. This might be the question. The secretion that is called a seminal plasma. The secretion of all these glands together is called as a seminal plasma, which includes sperm. The semen is what we call in general. The semen includes sperm and seminal plasma. Seminal plasma is secretion. This whole secretion of all these glands is called a seminal plasma. The secretion of all these glands constitute a seminal plasma, which is rich in fructose and calcium. Fructose is generally produced by seminal vesicle and calcium from the prostate gland. And certain enzymes are also produced, and some of them, they prevent their coagulation inside the human reproductive tract. Okay, so that there is easy passage and smooth passage of these sperms. And bulbourethral glands, they just help in lubrication of the penis. The secretion of bulbourethral glands also help in lubrication of penis. Female reproductive system. Female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries along with oviducts, uterus, cervix and vagina, and the external genitalia located in the pelvic region. So this is also located in the pelvic region. And these parts of the system along with a pair of mammary gland are integrated structurally and functionally to support the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth and childcare. Mammary glands, you must be knowing this, that their function is production of milk, and it is necessary for childcare after their birth, for feeding the child. Okay, so ovaries are primary female sex organs that produce the female gamete, ovum, and several steroid hormones. Steroidal hormones are also produced by ovaries like estrogen, progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone are the steroidal hormones. Okay, also called as the ovarian hormones. The ovaries are located one on each side of the lower abdomen. Each ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeter in length. So in case of testes are oval in shape and around 4 to 5 centimeter in length, and width is around 2 to 3 centimeter. But in case of ovaries, it is 2 to 4 centimeter in length, and it's connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. So Ovarian ligament connects ovary to the uterus. Suspensory ligament connects ovaries to the body wall, that is the pelvic wall. Broad ligament connects uterus to the body wall. Okay, and there is something called as mesosalpinx that connects fallopian tube to the body wall or the pelvic wall. Each ovary is around 2 to 4 centimeters in length and it's connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. Each ovary is covered by thin epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma and is divided into a peripheral cortex and inner medulla. So you must have read in the 11th standard that adrenal gland, which is present on the anterior part of our kidney, it also has a similar structure. Outer is called cortex, innermost is medulla. Just like the even our kidneys, they have the outer cortex, inner medulla, and the medullary pyramids are there. So in case of ovary, also similar thing. Outer cortex, that is peripheral cortex, and the inner medulla. Okay, so this is the diagrammatic view. Here you can see sectional view of female pelvic showing the reproductive system. So this is the urinary bladder. Then the white portion here is pubic symphysis. This is urethra, clitoris, which is actually a part of external genitalia, which we will discuss now. Okay, this all other parts are external genitalia we will discuss. The oviducts or the fallopian tubes, uterus and vagina constitute the female accessory ducts. In case of male, they are seminiferous tubule, retitestis, vasa efferentia, epididymis and vas deferens. And then the ejaculatory ducts and all. In case of female, they have oviduct, also called as a fallopian tube. Then there is uterus and vagina that constitute the female accessory duct. Each fallopian tube is around 10 to 12 centimeters long and extends from periphery of each ovary to the uterus. It is around 10 to 12 centimeters long, and the part closer to the ovary is funnel shaped called as infundibulum, which has a fine projection, finger-like projections called fimbriae, which help in collection of ovum after ovulation. And the infundibulum leads to a wider part called ampulla where fertilization occurs. And the last part is the narrow part called isthmus, which has narrow lumen and it joins the uterus. So there are basically three parts. One is the infundibulum, the funnel-shaped part close to the ovary, which has finger-like projection fimbriae, and then the wider part ampulla where fertilization occurs, and the last part is the narrow part. It's called the isthmus. And here they have given in the diagram this part, infundibulum, the funnel-shaped part close to the ovary. Okay. Then there is a wider part, ampulla, where fertilization occurs, and the last narrow part is the isthmus. And this hole is called a fallopian tube, which is around 10 to 12 centimeters long. Okay, the uterus has three parts basically: uterine fundus, uterine cavity, and the body. Okay, so these muscles, there are actually three parts: the endometrium, myometrium and the perimetrium, which we will discuss now. Cervix is a part of after the uterus is cervix, and this is called the cervical canal, which leads to the vagina. This cervical canal along with vagina forms the birth canal. Okay, so the uterus is single and it is also called as the womb. Okay, it is single and it's called womb. The shape is like the inverted pear. It is supported by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall, just like ovary. The uterus opens into vagina through a narrow cervix, and the cavity of the cervix is called cervical cavity or cervical canal, which along with the vagina forms the birth canal. The wall of the uterus has three layers of the tissue: the outermost membranous perimetrium, middle thick smooth muscle layer myometrium, inner glandular layer called endometrium that lines the uterine cavity. Okay, outermost membranous perimetrium, middle thick smooth muscle layer myometrium, and innermost glandular endometrium. The endometrium undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle, while the middle thick smooth muscle layer myometrium it exhibits strong contraction during the delivery of the baby, also called as the parturition. Okay. The endometrium, the innermost glandula, undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle, while the myometrium exhibits strong contraction during the delivery of the baby. The female external genitalia includes mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. Labia majora is a cushion of fatty tissue which has skin and pubic hair. The cushion of fatty tissue covered by skin and hair. Okay, the labia majora are the paired fleshy folds of tissue which extends down from the mons pubis and surround a vaginal opening. Labia minora are thin paired fold of tissues under labia majora. That opening of vagina is often covered partially by a membrane called hymen. Clitoris is a tiny finger-like structure which lies at the upper junction where the two labia minora are fused or above the urethral opening. The hymen, that is the membrane partially covering the vaginal opening, is often torn during first coitus or intercourse. However, it can be also torn due to or broken down by sudden fall or jolt or insertion of vaginal tampon. Active participation in some sports like horseback riding, cycling, etc. In women, the hymen persists even after coitus. In fact, the presence or absence of hymen is not reliable indicator of virginity or sexual experience. Okay, so it might be broken, it might be broken down, or it might not break also, or it might persist in few women. So it is not a correct or reliable indicator of sexual experience. Now this is a diagram of female, it's a mammary gland. Okay, so we'll read it in detail and then we'll discuss the diagram. A functional mammary gland, okay, is characteristics of all female mammals. The mammary glands are paired structures. Okay, mammary glands are paired structures breasts that contain glandular tissue and variable amount of fat. Okay, it has both glandular tissue and variable amount of fat. The glandular tissue of each breast is about it is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes, each containing milk producing cells called alveoli. The cells of the alveoli secrete milk which is stored in their lumen or cavities, and this alveoli join, they open into mammary tubules of each alveoli join to form a mammary duct. Several mammary ducts join to form mammary ampulla or lactiferous ampulla, which is then connected to the lactiferous duct through which the milk is sucked out. Okay, so actually what happens is there are basically two components. One is glandular tissue, another is when a variable amount of fat is also required for providing the cushion or support, and also it acts as a shock absorber. The glandular tissue is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Each lobe has around contains the milk producing cell alveoli. Cells of alveoli produce milk and store in their cavities the lumen, which are then connected to the mammary tubules. Mammary tubules of each alveoli join to form mammary duct. Several mammary ducts join to form mammary ampulla or lactiferous ampulla, which is then connected to the lactiferous duct through which the milk is sucked out. So in this diagram they have clearly shown the mammary lobes, that is the glandular tissue is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes in each breast or in each mammary gland. So these are actually the mammary lobes which you can see. Around 15 to 20 mammary lobes are present in each, and these mammary lobes contain milk producing cell called alveoli. So these are alveoli. The cells of the alveoli produce secrete milk and store in their cavities or lumen. These alveoli are now connected to mammary tubules. So these mammary tubules of each alveoli, they join to form mammary ducts, and several mammary ducts, they join to form this lactiferous ampulla or mammary ampulla, and then it is connected to the lactiferous duct through which milk is sucked out. So this terminal part is called as a nipple, and it has darkly surrounded area called areola. This part is called nipple, through which the milk is sucked out. It has an opening of lactiferous ducts, and darkly pigmented region around this nipple is called areola. It is hyperpigmented region actually. Gametogenesis. The primary sex organ, the testes in the males and ovaries in the female, produce gametes, that is sperms and ovum respectively, by the process called gametogenesis. In testes, the immature male germ cells called spermatogonia, they produce sperms by spermatogenesis that begins at puberty. Spermatogenesis begins at puberty, and the spermatogonia also are present inside wall of the seminiferous tubules, multiply by mitotic division and increase their numbers. Okay, so and then some of them they uh, become specialized in shape and size, and they are called primary spermatocytes. Okay, primary spermatocytes, and these primary spermatocytes undergo meiosis. So spermatogonia directly don't undergo meiosis. They first multiply by mitosis, increase their number, and those which are better, they become specialized in size and all, and they are called primary spermatocytes, and these primary spermatocytes undergo meiosis. Okay, so primary spermatocyte, after completing first meiotic division, it is called now a secondary spermatocyte. So it gives rise to two haploid cells called secondary spermatocytes, which have only half chromosomes, that 23 chromosomes each, and the secondary spermatocytes undergo second meiotic division to produce four haploid cells called the spermatids. Okay, and this is called spermatogenesis. Now the spermatids are transformed into spermatozoa or sperms by a process called spermiogenesis. So what is production of sperms, or formation of gametes in males, that is sperms? It is called spermatogenesis. It includes two processes. One is spermatidogenesis, that is formation of spermatids through meiosis, and then the process of development or transformation of spermatids to spermatozoa or sperms. This is called spermiogenesis. Both the processes together are called as a spermatogenesis. After spermiogenesis, the sperm head, it becomes emptied into the Sertoli cells or nurse cells that helps in nourishment. It nourishes the germ cells, and are finally released from the seminiferous tubules by process known as spermiation. So these terms are very important, and you must understand each and every term. Then only you will be able to understand the whole concept. So spermatogenesis is formation of sperms. It has two processes. One is the meiotic division leading to formation of spermatids. Then there is transformation of spermatids to spermatozoa or sperms. This is called spermiogenesis. And finally, their heads become emptied in the Sertoli cells, and they are then released from the seminiferous tubules by process known as spermiation. Spermatogenesis starts at the age of puberty due to significant increase in the secretion of gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is a hypothalamic hormone. It stimulates the secretion and synthesis of gonadotropins from the pituitary. And gonadotropins are LH, that is luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone, that is FSH. Okay, LH and FSH. LH acts on the Leydig or the interstitial cells and stimulates the synthesis and secretion of the androgens, whereas the FSH, it acts on the Sertoli cells and stimulates the synthesis or secretion of some factors which help in the process of spermiogenesis, that is transformation of spermatids to spermatozoa or sperms is called spermiogenesis. Okay, and the androgens which are produced, they also stimulate the process of spermatogenesis. Here they have given the diagram of sperm. Okay, so structure of sperm. It is a microscopic structure composed of a head. It has head, then neck, a middle piece, and tail. A plasma membrane envelops the whole body of sperm because it is a cell. And sperm head contains elongated haploid nucleus. As it is a gamete, it is haploid. Head has elongated haploid nucleus. The anterior portion is covered by a cap-like structure called acrosome, which is filled with enzymes that help in fertilization of ovum. Enzymes like hyaluronidase, penetrating enzyme, zonalysin or acrosines. This type of enzymes are present in the acrosome, that is a cap-like structure covering the head, anterior part of the head of the sperm. Middle piece, that is the neck connects head to the middle piece. Middle piece possesses number of mitochondria. So what are mitochondria? They are the organelles. They also called as the powerhouse of cell because they produce ATP. The middle piece has numerous mitochondria which produce energy for movement of the tail that that facilitates sperm motility, essential for fertilization. For fertilization, we need the sperms which are active and having very vigorous motility. So this provide energy for the movement of tail that facilitates the motility and which is essential for fertilization. Okay, and no, the human may ejaculate about 200 to 300 million sperms during a coitus, of which for normal fertility at least 60% of them must have normal shape and size, and at least 40% of those 60% must show vigorous tail motility. A normal human male ejaculates around 200 to 300 million sperms, and in these sperms, at least 60% of those sperms must have normal shape and size, and at least 40% of those 60% must show vigorous tail motility. Sperms released from seminiferous tubules are transported by accessory ducts. Okay, they are transported by the accessory ducts, secretion of epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicles, prostate, and essential for maturation and motility of sperms. The seminal, because their secretion is directly on sperm, whereas the bulbourethral or the Copper's gland, it helps in lubrication of penis and not in maturation and motility of sperms. Only the secretion of epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, and prostate gland helps in maturation and motility of sperms. The seminal plasma along with the sperms constitute semen. The function of male accessory ducts and the glands are maintained by testicular hormone androgens. The process of formation of mature female gamete is called oogenesis, which is markedly different from the spermatogenesis, because spermatogenesis begins at puberty, whereas oogenesis is initiated during embryonic development stage when a couple of million gamete mother cells called oogonia are formed within each ovary, and no more oogonia are formed or added after the birth. Unlike the spermatogenesis, in spermatogenesis they keep on forming. The spermatogonia, they never end. But here the oogonia are added, and no more oogonia are added or formed after the birth. And these cells start division and enter into the prophase 1, and they get arrested in the prophase 1 on meiotic division, and they are called now primary oocytes. Okay, and get temporarily arrested there. The primary called as primary oocytes. Each primary oocyte gets surrounded by a layer of granulosa cells called a primary follicle. A large number of these follicles degenerate from birth till puberty. This is called follicular atresia. This degeneration of follicle is called follicular atresia, and at puberty only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles having primary oocytes are left in each ovary, and this primary follicle gets surrounded by more layer of granulosa cell at puberty when the gonadotropins level increases, and a new theca forms, and it is called secondary follicles. Now secondary follicles soon transforms into a tertiary follicle, which is characterized by a fluid filled cavity called antrum, and theca layer is organized into theca interna and theca externa. It is important to draw your attention that it is at this stage, that is the tertiary follicle, that primary oocyte within the ovary or within the tertiary follicle grow in size and completes its first meiotic division. So we know that it was arrested in the prophase 1 during the embryonic development because of very low concentration of the gonadotropins. It's surrounded by granular cell and it's called primary follicle. Large number of primary follicles degenerate from birth till puberty. It's called follicular atresia. At puberty, only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary. Now they undergo development and new granular cells are formed and theca is formed. It's called secondary follicle. Now secondary follicle soon transforms into the tertiary follicle, which is characterized by fluid filled cavity called antrum, and theca is organized into theca externa and theca interna. Okay, and now the primary oocyte within the tertiary follicle completes its first meiotic division. It is an unequal division resulting in the formation of a large haploid secondary oocyte and a tiny haploid first polar body. The secondary oocyte retains bulk of the nutrient-rich cytoplasm of the primary oocyte. Does the first polar body born out of first meiotic division divide further or degenerate? At present, we are not very certain about this. The tertiary follicle further changes it into a mature Graafian follicle. So tertiary follicle, which has the fluid filled cavity called antrum and theca interna, theca externa, it divides further and become the mature follicle, also called as the Graafian follicle. Now the secondary oocyte within this Graafian follicle forms a new glycoprotein layer called a zona pellucida surrounding it. The Graafian follicle now ruptures and releases the secondary oocyte, also called as the ovum, but this is not actually the ovum. It is a secondary oocyte from the ovary by process known as ovulation. So in this diagram it is clearly shown. If you want, you can take screenshot of this, or you just open your NCERT and read this. It's very easy. So now this part, the menstrual cycle, will do now. Okay, the menstrual cycle. The reproductive cycle in female primates is like monkeys, apes, and human beings is called menstrual cycle, whereas in female non-primate it's called estrous cycle. The first menstruation begins at puberty and it's called menarche. In human female, the menstruation is repeated at an average interval about 28 to 29 days, and the cycle of events starting from one menstruation till next one is called menstrual cycle. One ovum or secondary oocyte is released, that is ovulation, during the middle of each cycle. Not necessarily the middle, because duration might vary. The major events of the menstrual cycle are shown in the figure 3.9, that is this phase. The events are shown. First is menstruation, then there is follicular phase, also called as proliferative phase. Then there is luteal or secretory phase. In between this follicular phase, that is proliferative, and luteal or secretory phase lies the ovulation. Here lies the ovulation, approximately the middle of cycle. And now the next cycle begins. The cycle starts with menstrual phase, during which menstrual flow occurs, which lasts for 3 to 5 days. The menstrual flow results due to breakdown of the endometrium, that is inner glandular layer of the uterine tissue, uterine wall, lining of the uterus, and its blood vessels, which forms a liquid that comes out through vagina. Menstruation only occurs if the released ovum or the secondary oocyte is not fertilized. Lack of menstruation may be indicative of pregnancy, but however, it may also be caused due to some other underlying causes like stress, hormonal imbalance, poor health, etc. Menstrual phase is followed by follicular phase, also called as a proliferative, because during this phase the primary follicles in the ovary grow to become a mature Graafian follicle, and simultaneously endometrium, which was shed off during the menstrual phase of the uterus, regenerates through proliferation, and that's why it is also called as a proliferative phase. These changes in the ovary and uterus are induced by changes in the levels of pituitary and the ovarian hormones. The secretion of this gonadotropins, that is LH and FSH, increases gradually. The gonadotropins LH and FSH increase gradually during the follicular phase and stimulates the follicular development as well as secretion of estrogen by the growing follicles. Both LH and FSH attain peak level in the middle of cycle, about 14 days, during which ovulation occurs. Rapid secretion of LH leading to maximum level during the middle cycle is called LH surge, which induces the rupture of Graafian follicle and thereby release of ovum. So it is this LH surge or the increase in level of LH is responsible for the ovulation. The ovulation, that is ovulatory phase, is followed by luteal phase or secretory phase, during which the remaining parts of the Graafian follicle, that is the ruptured Graafian follicle, transforms into a corpus luteum, also called allo body. This corpus luteum secretes large amount of progesterone, which is essential for maintenance of endometrium. Such an endometrium is necessary for implantation of fertilized ovum and other events of pregnancy. During pregnancy, all the events of menstrual cycle stops and there is no menstruation in the absence of fertilization. The corpus luteum degenerates. This causes disintegration of endometrium, because when corpus luteum degenerates, there is no secretion of progesterone. So there is no maintenance of endometrium, and so endometrium sheds off and leads to menstruation, marking a new cycle. In human beings, this menstrual cycle ceases around 50 years of age, that is termed as a menopause. Cyclic menstruation is an indicator of normal reproductive phase and extends between menarche and menopause. Menarche is the beginning of the menstrual cycle during the puberty, and menopause is around 50 years of age. Fertilization and implantation. During copulation coitus, the semen is released by the penis into the female vagina. This is insemination, and the motile sperms swim rapidly pass through the cervix, enter into uterus, and finally reach the ampullary region, the wider part of the fallopian tube where the fertilization occurs. The ovum released by the ovary is called, it is also transported at ampullary region where the fertilization takes place. Okay, fertilization can only occur when the ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously to the ampullary region. This is the reason why not all the copulation lead to pregnancy, because for fertilization to occur, the ovum and sperm should reach simultaneously at that region, the ampulla. Process of fusion of a sperm with ovum is called fertilization. During fertilization, a sperm comes in contact with the zona pellucida layer around the secondary oocyte or the ovum and induces changes in the membrane that blocks the entry of additional sperms. Okay, and this ensures that only one sperm can fertilize the ovum. Secretion of an acrosome, that is cap-like structure on the anterior part of the head of the sperm, helps sperm enter into cytoplasm of the ovum through the zona pellucida and plasma membrane. This induces the completion of the meiotic division of the secondary oocyte. The second meiotic division is also unequal and results into formation of second polar body and a haploid ovum. This is the actual ovum and not the secondary oocyte. Soon the haploid nucleus of the sperm and the ovum fuse together to form the diploid zygote. So this you all know is very easy. Okay, so the mitotic division starts as the zygote moves through the isthmus, that narrow part of the fallopian tube of the oviduct, called a cleavage towards the uterus, and forms 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells called blastomers. These daughter cells are called blastomers and the structure is called blastoma. The embryo with 8 to 16 blastomers is called the morula. Okay, so there are 2, 4, 6, 8 and many more cells called blastomers. So this 8 to 16 cell stage is called morula. The morula continues to divide and transforms into blastocyst as it moves further into uterus. The blastomers in the blastocyst are arranged into outer layer called trophoblast or trophoectoderm, and the inner group of cells attached to the trophoblast called inner cell mass. Trophoblast layer then get attached to the endometrium and inner cell mass gets differentiated as embryo. After attachment, the uterine cells divide rapidly and covers the blastocyst. As a result, blastocyst become embedded into the endometrium of the uterus. This is called as the implantation. Leads to pregnancy. Pregnancy and embryonic development. After implantation, finger-like projection appear on the trophoblast or trophoectoderm layer called a chorionic villi, which are surrounded by uterine tissue and maternal blood. This chorionic villi and the uterine tissue and the maternal blood become interdigitated with each other and jointly forms a structural and functional unit between the developing embryo, fetus, and maternal body called placenta. This placenta, it facilitates the supply of oxygen and nutrients to the embryo, and also removal of carbon dioxide and excretory or the waste substances produced by the embryo. The placenta is connected to the embryo through umbilical cord, which helps in transport of these substances to and from the embryo. Placenta also acts as an endocrine tissue because it produces several hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin (HCG), and human placental lactation (HPL), estrogen, progesterone, etc. Estrogen and progestogens are also produced by this placenta. In the later phase of pregnancy, a hormone called relaxin is also produced or secreted by the ovary. Let's remember that HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin, which acts like LH and maintains corpus luteum beyond its normal life. Okay, and another one, HPL, human placental lactation, and the relaxin, which are produced in human only during the pregnancy. So these three hormones are produced only during pregnancy. In addition, during pregnancy, the levels of other hormones like estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, etc. are also increased several folds in the maternal blood. Increased production of these hormones is essential for supporting fetal growth, metabolic changes in the mother, and maintenance of the pregnancy. Immediately after implantation, the inner cell mass embryo differentiates into it differentiates and out into outer layer called ectoderm, and inner layer called endoderm, and a mesoderm soon appears between ectoderm and endoderm. As we are triploblastic organism, we have the third layer, that is mesoderm, between ectoderm and endoderm. These three layers give rise to all the tissues and organs in adults. It is needed to be mentioned here that the inner cell mass contains certain cells called stem cells, which have the potential to give rise to all the tissues and organs. Okay, the human pregnancy lasts for 9 months, also called 266 days or 38 weeks, or we can say 9 months. Find out in humans, after 1 month of pregnancy, the embryo's heart is formed. Okay, after 1 month of pregnancy, embryo's heart is formed, which is an important organ. The first sign of growing fetus may be noticed by listening to the heart sound carefully through the stethoscope. By the end of second month of pregnancy, fetus develop limbs and digits. By the end of 3 months, that is 12 weeks, also called as the first trimester, most of the major organ systems are formed. For example, the genitals, external genitalia, then limbs, all are well developed. The first movement of the fetus and the appearance of hair on the head is usually during the 5th month. By the end of 6 months or about 24 weeks, that is the second trimester, the body is covered with fine hair, eyelids separate, and eyelashes are formed. By the end of 9 months of pregnancy, the fetus is fully developed and ready for delivery. Now this is the last part of the lesson, that is parturition and the lactation. Average duration of human pregnancy is about 9 months, okay, which is called gestation period, that is development of the embryo. Vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of pregnancy causes expulsion or the delivery of the fetus. This process is delivery of the fetus or childbirth is called the parturition. And in this, the middle smooth muscle layer, the myometrium of the uterus wall, is involved. The parturition is induced by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism, which the signals for parturition originate from fully developed fetus and the placenta, which induces mild uterine contractions called fetal ejection reflex, and this triggers the release of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary, from the posterior pituitary or neurohypophysis, which is under direct control of hypothalamus. It releases oxytocin, and this oxytocin acts on the smooth muscle layer of the uterine muscles and causes strong uterine contractions, which in turn stimulates further secretion of oxytocin. This stimulatory reflex between the uterine contraction and oxytocin secretion continues, resulting in the stronger and stronger contraction and leads to expulsion or the parturition, the expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through the birth canal, that is cervical canal plus vagina. Soon after the infant is delivered, the placenta is also expelled out of the uterus. Mammary glands of the female undergo differentiation during the pregnancy and starts producing milk towards the end of the pregnancy by the process called lactation. This helps mother in feeding the newborn. The milk produced during initial few days of lactation is called the colostrum. Okay, the initial yellowish fluid produced during initial few days of lactation is called colostrum, which contains several antibodies, the IgA antibodies. Okay, absolutely essential for developing the resistance for newborn babies. Breastfeeding during the initial few days of period of infant growth is recommended by doctor for bringing up healthy baby because it contains several antibodies. So we have done this. We are done with this chapter, and in next video we'll probably do the reproductive health chapter. Both the chapters are very important for NEET and also for the 12th board.